Good afternoon. It's great to be here. Today I want to share with you a very important lesson I learned about school shootings and bullying when I was 12 years old. It all started with a love note. There was a girl in fourth grade who I had a crush on, and I finally got up the courage to write her a note. I decided to put it under her desk at the end of the day, hoping that she would find it the next morning. That's not how it happened at all. The teacher decided to change the seating assignment. Someone else sat in her desk, found her note, read it, gave it to the teacher, who read it in front of the entire class. She was so embarrassed. You need to know this note. It wasn't your typical check yes or no. It was a bit more. And so when it was read in class, she was so embarrassed, she not only checked out of school that day, but I think she even changed schools. It was bad. So I walked in to school later that day. I arrived a little late, and when I went in and sat down, all of the kids in class, they laughed, they pointed at me. No one wanted to hang out with me. No one wanted to play with me that day. Even at lunch, no one would sit with me except for this one guy. And he ended up being the only guy to throw ball with me at PE too. So walking back in, I asked him why he decided to be so kind to me. And he said, "Man, I didn't want you to go through the day alone. I know how you feel. They always treat me this way." Now, I later learned that he looked so differently from the rest of us, not just because of his red hair or the freckles, but he was in a house fire when he was an infant. Even the younger kids in our school made fun of the way that he looked. Elementary got better for him as he and I remained friends, but man, sixth grade, no way. Sixth grade for him was a nightmare. It was a living hell. Every day kids would make fun of him, push him in the lockers. This one time in PE, I was shooting basketball and I heard what sounded like his voice coming from the locker room. So I go in to see what's going on. When I walk in, there's these three guys who have him on the floor and they're just beating on him. I yelled for one of our coaches and I went in, and as soon as there was an opening, I pulled him out and we got out of there as quick as we could. He was beaten so badly, he wasn't able to return to school the rest of that week. And I'm fairly certain nothing ever happened to those three guys either. So fast forward to the last day of sixth grade. Field day. It's all you can eat. Popcorn, cotton candy, drinks. We're playing basketball, football all day. It's maybe 10 or 15 minutes before before the bell rings for us to go home for the summer. We're sitting at the top of the bleachers, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, my friend stands up. He reaches in his pocket, and he pulls out a gun, and he points it in the direction of those three guys who had been so mean to him all that year. School really doesn't prepare you for this, you know. And I look up at my friend and man, you're better than this. You're better than these guys. Come on, dude, let's just go outside. Let's take a breath. I mean, sixth grade, right? Let's cool out. It totally surprised me when he takes the gun and he puts it back in his pocket and he followed me down the bleachers out and around. On the way out, I motioned for one of our coaches to come with us. And when we got outside, I looked at my friend and I said, "Hey man, do you have anything you need to say to Coach?" And again, he reached in his pocket. He pulls out the gun. This time, he hands it to Coach. And Coach put his arm around my friend and they walked off into the school past the cafeteria. That was the last time I ever saw my friend. Here's the problem, guys. It's 30 years later. And this hasn't got any better at all. As a matter of fact, things have really only gotten worse. And we see this through an escalation, through a rise of things like school shootings, of adolescent peer-to-peer violence, of social and cyberbullying. It's like our kids have no clue how to treat one another, much less how to treat themselves, because we've seen things like teen suicide and self-harming also rise and increase. And this is where I've spent the last 20 years of my life, to help students understand that they have value and they can enjoy healthy relationships and peer communities. We've seen absolutely astounding outcomes as a result of the work. We've seen in schools daily enrollment attendance go from high 70s or low 70s, high 60s to over 95% daily attendance, more than a 20% increase of daily attendance. We've seen things like discipline referrals, where a kid would get expelled, suspended, or sent to alternative school. We've seen those things decrease from as many as 50 per month on campus at a single school to as few as 2 per month. And so what happens when kids come to school and they show up and they're not getting in fights with one another and they're not walking around in fear that they're going to be bullied? Well, the learning process happens. They want to be there. And as a result, things like standardized test scores improve across the board. We've even seen like the football team and the band get better because kids want to enjoy one another more. And today I want to share with you how we do this. It's really very simple, and anyone can do this anywhere. We intentionally engage, we go into schools, partner with them, and intentionally engage around 30 to 35% of the student body. We facilitate group meetings for them. A few times a month, 45 minutes a meeting. We give them an opportunity to share things like highs, lows, peaks, valleys, roses, buds, and thorns, what's going on in your life. We train students to be group leaders, peer mentors, if you will, to sit among them. We help them learn how to do things like have a conversation by asking open-ended questions. We even train these students who want to serve their peers in this capacity. We train them to make handoffs to trusted adults in the event of a traumatic situation or some sort of other life-threatening thing which may be going on in their friends' lives. So you're probably thinking, how do you achieve those outcomes with that method? You must only be using like the social elite, like the celebrities, your high school, middle school celebrities on social media and different things like that. Actually, we've discovered that all students, all people, if you will, all students have influence. And when we empower them to intentionally engage their own influence and show up in the lives of their peers to help have authentic, real conversations, amazing things can happen. Case in point, there was this one young man. It was his senior year. Let's call him David. And David applied to be a peer group leader, a mentor to his peers. Now, David had been identified as intellectually disabled, and there were some on campus, even a couple amongst our staff, who wondered whether or not David could do it, could serve as a peer group leader. After a few conversations, we decided, man, we're just going to give him the shot. He wants to do it after all, right? So let's give him the opportunity. Let's go. If he needs added support, we'll provide that along the way. We'll keep an eye on it. I'm so thankful we did. The young man in his group, the freshman boys in his group, like they came alive with David. They had real, like vulnerable conversations. They would laugh. You would always look in their direction for the chatter and the commotion, and they were right on track with the content that we provided for them to do. David was so good for that group of boys. But they were also good for him. His attendance was perfect that year. His grades that year, his senior year of high school, were actually better than they'd ever been before. December of his senior year, he was voted on by his peers, also by the faculty, to be Student of the Month. I arrived on his campus that day. He was the first one. He came to me, "John, you're not going to believe what happened." He was so excited. He was ecstatic. It was amazing to see. So now I think to just a couple of months after that. It's February 14th, 2018. The week before, I'd been traveling for work, and I wanted to surprise my wife by showing up at her school where she teaches and being there outside when she walked out. And I get a message from a friend who tells me that I need to open up a certain live Instagram stream. And so my phone was still connected to the Bluetooth in the car. And as soon as it came on, I heard gunshots. I heard kids screaming in terror and fear. It was an active school shooting. In that moment, I couldn't help as a father to think about my own kids who were sitting in a classroom somewhere. I couldn't help but think about my wife who was in front of a group of students teaching. I've often reflected on the young man who perpetrated those crimes of just the violence against his peers. I've often wondered how similar or dissimilar he was from my friend from 4th grade. I've often wondered how similar or dissimilar he was from David, the young man identified as intellectually disabled but absolutely crushed it his senior year. If this event and if education gives us the opportunity for the collaboration of ideas so that we can be better and add value to the world around us, then now we have the obligation to help our kids learn how to do life together in more healthy relational community. We have the obligation to empower our kids and believe in them so that they can be proud of themselves and live amazing lives. Thank you.